Yaffee program on WVNN.
No freedom, no peace until ICE is off the streets. Okay, obviously it's not what I think, but apparently there are some students at a school in Madison. It was James Clemens High School yesterday. They did their little protest, and that was their slogan. No freedom, no peace until ICE is off the streets. What does that mean? What does that even mean? We'll talk about this in a moment. I know Chris is chomping at the bit there. We'll get to it. You are listening to the Yaffee program. This is the show where you can count on the latest news, the important guests, and the best analysis, all for your morning commute on News Talk 770 AM 92.5 FM WVNN. Christopher Reed, host of the Daily Controversy. You can hear a show 8 to 10 p.m. on WVNN. Joining me on the show, joins me every Thursday. All right, Chris, tell me, what does that mean? No freedom, no peace until ICE is off the streets?
Maybe they were just really upset when when the icing happened in Huntsville and they didn't get it off the streets quick enough, and everyone's thinking this.
Point.
Yeah, if everyone thinks it's political, they're just like, you guys really can't clear all this stuff up, and they're just tired of it. It's just like,
yeah,
how come Nashville gets this stuff off? We can't do it. We're 90 minutes away, so.
Yeah, no free. I mean, technically, it would work. No freedom, because you have no freedom to go anywhere because there's ice on the streets, like actual ice. No peace. Yeah, it would not be very peaceful for you.
Yeah, you're just stuck in your house. I mean, even the DoorDash people can't get to your place. So you're it's basically like the 1800s to these kids. So I understand there.
Yeah, it's totally. But there's got to be somebody out there, though. In all seriousness, there's got to be someone who doesn't watch the news and sees one of these ICE protests. I just want to know what that guy's. Do you think he's like, why are they so upset at ICE? I don't get it.
First of all, I've never even heard of this school, and you have to know this in red states. This is why we need to get full school choice and just completely dismantle the current public education system. Just make it charter schools or whatever. Because even in red states, even in blood red states, people teaching your children, about 60% probably in Alabama, which is way better than say California, which is 90, but 60% lean Democrat, right? They are not the teachers from the 80s, right? These people are, a lot of them are communist, and everyone's like, oh no, not my teacher. My teacher's so wonderful. Your teacher's going to communist manifesto meetings after they teach your kids how to be, if you're a boy, if it's a boy, how to be a girl. And people just got to realize this. You have to unmask this stuff. And at least in Alabama, we have the power to do something about it. Why is that school continuing to get any state funds?
I will
shut
say
it down.
this, Chris. I will say this. Actually, in this case, the school did the right thing, believe it or not, because originally the students wanted to do a walkout. The school said no, said you cannot walk out of class. If you do, you'll get punished. Now, AL.com is saying there was a compromise with the school where they could do a protest after school outside, but that's not really a compromise because they could do that anyway. So in this case, and I totally get what you're saying in most cases, but in this case, the school actually didn't put up with it. They're like, no, we're not letting you do a walkout. If you want to do a protest on your own time, go ahead and do a protest on your own time.
Yeah, so and ICE is really not patrolling the Huntsville area because they don't have to, because we turn over illegals anytime, even sometimes before they get to jail. It's somebody gets pulled over, they're an illegal immigrant, they'll just call ICE, hey, pick this guy up. We do it pretty easy. So anytime what ICE does do is they go after work sites. If they find out a work site is doing these low bid contracts, which we've seen for even state public school buildings, ICE will go down there, sweep it, and arrest everyone that's an illegal. And the reason they do that, which is smart, they're some businesses, they can't outcompete when you have contractors that are using illegal labor. And it really helps our state because then once you get those people out, the average citizen can get a job, and and it's fair to everyone else because you shouldn't be screwing over the people that are doing it the right way. So that's what ICE mainly does here, business enforcement and that kind of stuff. But ICE is not going around Huntsville and just picking people randomly off the street. They're doing targeted stuff. Now, they're eventually, I hope they do mass deportations, find everyone and just deport them. I don't care where they are. I hope that happens, but it's not going to be a big deal in Alabama because, again, Alabama's blood red, so there's not going to be much pushback. You're not going to be able to get a lot of protesters out to do this, and nobody cares what some stupid kids say after school. I mean, those kids they're probably the bottom half of the class, probably all smoke weed, so who cares? They want to hate ICE. It's great.
When you see the picture of the protest, what you picture the students that would do this look like, that's what they look like.
Yeah, they're all losers. Yeah, they're losers. I've seen every single protest. It's like, man, these people had friends and maybe a gym membership, like, I don't know, maybe they wouldn't be so angry. Like, and also, like, is this what they have to do to get community? Like, can't they just go meet people at church or like go do something in your community, volunteer, like join a sports team, like you're a guy, like join the football team. You might not be great right now. Maybe you don't start, but at least you exercise, you'll have some buddies, so this is not the way to build like social cohesion. Plus, do these kids not realize like the internet's forever? Do you really think that if an employer were to see that years down the road, oh, you were that person that as a teenager were saying get ICE out? That for me would be like, okay, I don't want anybody that's crazy on my job site. I don't want any nut jobs. And I probably wouldn't say that, but I would say, like, look, everything you do it's going to be recorded. So don't do dumb stuff that's going to be recorded and saved somewhere. And I think the parents should be telling their kids, like, why are you doing this? I'm glad it was peaceful. I'm glad it was after school.
Joining them. Yeah, some of the parents are joining them. That's the problem, it seems like.
Yeah, I mean, but why did they live in like, this is the thing. Like, why did they think this is going to work in Alabama? It's like these people running against Republican statewide officials. You may as well, like, it doesn't matter who you run. You could run the best Democrat ever. No one's going to win a Democrat statewide seat in Alabama for the next 50 years. So it's pointless. Like, the DNC is not going to give one single dollar to any of the candidates. So, I mean, I get it. If they want to do something after school, maybe it's good exercise to hold a sign up. Maybe that's all they're going to get for the week, and that's fine. But it just, it's not, I don't think it's going to, they're not changing minds in Alabama. Let's just put it that way.
Well, yeah. I mean, most of this is virtue signaling. I can't imagine having been a child in high school and wanting to do this. I just can't imagine that it was a thing that I would have wanted to do in high school. Were you involved in anything like this when you were in high school, Chris?
You think I never in my life have gone to any protest, and I lived and worked in D.C. for a year, and I hated it so much. Like, every time I go to the metro, there'd be somebody protesting something, and it was always some ridiculous cause. I was like, and they're good causes. There are things worth protest. I'm not saying that there's not. I'm just saying, for me personally, the idea of standing out in the cold for 4 hours holding a sign there's really just not any cause I could think of where I'd really want to do that. So no, I didn't do that. I mean, I was involved in. I did like debate stuff, and then we did like other things, but I didn't really get involved in any of that. Left-wing activism, I guess. I mean, I was in college Republicans, young Republicans, all that kind of stuff. But I can guarantee you we didn't protest ICE.
Well, yeah, that's a good point. I mean, it says here, AL.com had the story. So, of course, they're going to frame this in any way possible that's going to make it seem like these kids had a major victory, even though that's the exact opposite of what happened. But they said between 75 and 100 students and a few parents staged the protest march after school, letting their voices be heard about their opinions about U.S. immigration and enforcement activities around the country. They found themselves with plenty of support from motorists passing by as a rush hour approached along one of the growing city's main thoroughfares, with several vehicles honking their horns for support.
That's not why they were honking. They were honking because they thought these people were I would have honked my horns like, you morons. I would have honked like 5 times. It would not have been for support. They're just assuming, oh, yeah, honk for support. I'm like, they're honking because you guys are annoying and loud. They're not honking because they support you. Maybe there were a couple, but you really think there's a ton of people in Huntsville, Alabama that are trying to get home from work that just are, oh, great, this is going to cause my commute to be a little bit slower today. And I'm so glad these moronic kids are screaming and yelling with their stupid signs. I'm going to honk my horn in support. That did not happen. This is why I don't read AL.com, because every time they're so much worse than the Washington Post, the New York Times. There's just no point.
Okay. All right, there you go. Yeah, I mean, AOL.com also framed it that there was a compromise, but the compromise really was the school got their way and they had to protest after school. It's not really a compromise. Christopher Reed is... Go ahead, Chris.
I was going to say briefly, I think they have to allow you to have clubs and stuff or do things after school on property as long as you can clear it with the university. So I think that's fine for most schools, whatever the cause is, as long as you're not creating an issue for the school. Yeah, that would probably be fine. So there you go. Sorry.
I mean, they're just walking on the sidewalk, like
perfectly legal,
right outside the school. So I mean, of course the school can't stop them from doing that unless, they're violent or something. Christopher Reed is host of The Daily Controversy. You can listen to his show today, 8 to 10 p.m. right here on WVNN. Of course, go to his website, thedailycontroversy.com, or his podcast, anywhere you get your podcast. Going to join me throughout the show. In the next segment, we will get to the headlines with the Alabama bullet points. We'll be back in a moment on the Yaffee program.
The Yaffee program.
We're back on the Yaffee program, Newstalk 770 AM, 92.5 FM, WVNN. Glad you've joined the show today. Christopher Reed joins us every Thursday. He'll join us a little bit later on. I do have some text messages weighing in. You can weigh in on the text line. The Yaffee text line, 866-494-9866, 866-494-WVNN, brought to you by RegenesisStemCell.com. One person said, now that lame chant is stuck in my head. No freedom, no peace. Thanks a lot, Yaffee. My bad. I guess maybe I just want to know what it means. No freedom from what? So does that mean no freedom for ICE or no freedom for you? Or what is that? What do you mean by that? All right, anyway, let's get to more of the headlines from around the state. Time for the Alabama bullet points.
Alabama bullet points. Today's headlines from around the Yellowhammer State.
Sponsored by Larry's Pistol and Pawn. Number 4 today, I wrote about this at YellowhammerNews.com. As Governor Doug Jones says he would oust members of the Alabama Public Library Board over their so-called political agenda. He says they're crazy. Now, former U.S. Senator Doug Jones, who is currently running for Alabama governor on the Democrat side, pledged during a recent Doug Unplugged live stream, that's literally what it's called, to remove certain members of the Alabama Public Library Service Board if elected. Now, he labeled them crazy and accused them of pushing a political agenda, specifically criticizing their ongoing decision to withhold state funding from the Fairhope Public Library. This stems from Ivy wanting to protect children from sexually explicit stuff in the children's section. Doug Jones, I guess, has a problem with that. It's okay. Jones is not going to be our next governor, so it's okay. Number 3 today, State Senator Chris Elliott says he's going to carry Barnes's bill to make disrupting church a felony. So Alabama State Senator Chris Elliott out of Josephine has agreed to carry legislation in the Senate originally introduced by State Representative Greg Barnes in the House, which would make intentionally disrupting a worship service through unlawful protest, riot, or disorderly conduct. It would make that a Class C felony for first-time offenders. Now, the bill imposes harsher penalties, including a mandatory 5-year minimum sentence for repeat violations, and has garnered support from over 50 co-sponsors. It was prompted by a recent incident in Minnesota, as you know, where anti-ICE protesters disrupted a church service and targeted the pastor, who serves as a local ICE field office director. Now, Elliott emphasized the need to prevent such Minnesota mess from occurring in Alabama, stating he is honored to sponsor the measure in the Senate. So good for him. Number 2 today, we were talking about this in the first segment, Alabama students protest immigration crackdown. That's right, about 75 to 100 students from James Clemens High School in Madison, Alabama, joined by a few parents. Yes, of course, their parents are the ones telling them this nonsense. Staged a peaceful protest march along County Line Road after school hours. Now, they chanted no freedom, no peace until ICE is off the street to oppose U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement. So that kind of ICE, not ICE, actual ICE, even though I would protest actual ICE over what they were doing. But anyway, they expressed demands to end what they described as harmful ICE practices, affirm that immigrants are welcome, and restore rights they feel have been eroded. So that means, do they really want all illegal immigrants welcome? Is that really what they want? It's just when they blur that line once again. All right, number one, Attorney General Steve Marshall praises the American Society of Plastic Surgeons for speaking out against gender transition surgeries for minors. That's right, the American Society of Plastic Surgeons has issued a statement recommending that surgeons delay gender-related chest, genital, and facial surgeries for minors until patients reach age 19 or older, marking the first time a major U.S. medical association has restricted such procedures for young people due to insufficient evidence that it benefits those young people and that the benefits outweigh the risks. Now, Alabama Attorney General Steve Marshall praised the decision as a major win for protecting children, highlighting that responsible medical groups are now prioritizing parents' safety over ideology. In contrast to prior claims by groups like the ACLU that these interventions are medically necessary, Marshall emphasized addressing past harms to thousands of American children and preventing further irreversible procedures, framing the ASPS move as a significant step toward evidence-based care in child protection, which obviously he is exactly right. So the trend in this country, as of right now, and a lot of it has to do with the election of President Trump, let's be honest, but the trend in this country is moving away from a lot of this transgender radical nonsense, especially for kids. Now, for adults, we still need to make some progress there because for most adults, it's not really a good idea. Let's just be honest here. But at least we're making some progress on this issue. And we're going to talk more about that later on with Christopher Reed. He is host of the Daily Controversy. He joins me on the show every Thursday. Right now, I got to tell you more about Larry's Pistol and Pawn because Valentine's Day is almost here. You're like, yeah, I'll just go to Walgreens or something. I'll pick up some M&Ms and a card, and my wife will be fine with that. Guys, how about you step it up a little bit this year, okay? You know, you can get some really nice jewelry for your wife. Maybe she needs some new earrings. Maybe she needs a new bracelet or something, a new necklace. You could get a gold necklace for her, maybe even diamond earrings. You could really step it up. They have that available and more at Larry's Pistol and Pawn. They have antique jewelry, permanent jewelry, and you can get it all for a really great price. You can even finance it. They have special financing options available for you. But of course, it's only available for you if you go to Larry's Pistol and Pawn and see some of the great deals. So they have two locations, one in Madison off Greenbrier Exit 3 near the Rusty Water Tower. So, we've all seen that. It's right next door. It's an 18,000 square foot facility. There's another one in Huntsville off North Memorial Parkway. And you really should go. If you ever pass by, you notice that the parking lot is full, that it's always really busy. It's because it's popular. It's popular because the customer service is great, the selection is great, and the prices are great. So go to Larry's Pistol and Pawn today. Go to the website, find out more about the latest deals, see how much you can save for Valentine's Day shopping. Go to pistolandpawn.com. That's the website, pistolandpawn.com. When you go, let them know Yaffee was the one who sent you. So yesterday on the show, I had Congressman Barry Moore on. He's running for the U.S. Senate. And I basically asked him, I was like, is Trump caving in Minnesota when it comes to ICE enforcement? Because Tom Homan announced yesterday they're drawing down the amount of agents. So I'll ask Chris that next and we'll talk about it. I don't really think he's caving, but it's an interesting discussion. So we'll get to that next on the Yaffee program. Stay with us.
It's the Yaffee program on WVNN.
What would you do if your online store converted 36% more shoppers? You could take 36% more vacation.
Another pina colada?
Yes, please.
Open a new retail location with 36% more square feet.
Fantastic.
Hire 36% more help.
You're hired and you're hired.
Shopify has the world's best converting checkout, up to 36% better than other e-commerce platforms. What you do with those extra sales is up to you. Switch to Shopify today at shopify.com/listen and get a $1 trial. Shopify.com/listen.
Start your day with the morning jolt of Drake C. Toll.
You've never been a football coach before, so you're not allowed to talk about this. No, I can have burnt mozzarella sticks and say the chef's not working.
Then Black and Abdallah.
Adam Abdallah.
That's what we do. We rank
Shots
quarterbacks.
fired.
Okay.
And Westwood One Sports Night caps it all off.
I don't know how they're going to win, but they're going to win. We're open all night here on Westwood One.
Westwood One Sports Talk. Follow and listen on your favorite platform.
Welcome back to the Yaffee program. We're here on News Talk 770 AM, 92.5 FM, WVNN. I'm Alabama's voice of reason. As you know, Huntsville's conservative conscience. Don't forget to like the Yaffee Facebook page. Follow me on X at Yaffee, and much, much more. Joining me on the show right now is Christopher Reed. He is host of The Daily Controversy. Check out his latest stuff at thedailycontroversy.com. His podcast, anywhere podcasts are available. So, Chris, I wanted to ask you about recent developments in Minneapolis and Minnesota when it comes to ICE. Because you have Tom Homan, who is Trump's border czar, sent there to straighten things out. Seems like he's doing a good job. He has announced an immediate drawdown of about 700 agents in Minneapolis. He says this is because, well, they're starting to cooperate more there. Local officials there are starting to cooperate, so he doesn't need as many agents. What do you think about this? Do you buy that argument, or do you think maybe Trump is caving a little bit, the administration is caving a little bit? What do you think?
Well, perspective is everything. So there was roughly 3,000. Now there's going to be, I think, 2,200, 2,300. There's a little bit of movement around, I think, 100 or 200 of those. So the police force in Minneapolis is 600. So right now, you've got nearly 4 times the amount of ICE than you have police in Minneapolis. Now, before you had 5 times. So, yeah, it is a drawdown, but it's mainly we're putting Border Patrol doing more of the interior, like stuff that's closer to Texas, Arizona. We streamlined it because it was Nome is really, I think Nome does a great job. She did awesome on the border. I mean, she really did. You got to give her credit. It wasn't just Trump doing that. She actually did some really innovative things. But when it comes to like having a chain of command, Tom Homan's been doing this for 40 years. I mean, he did it under Reagan. Like he's done it under 5, 6 presidents. So he knows exactly how to do that. Nome didn't realize you can't have 2 separate chains of command for different people in the same city. And I understand why she might not have known that, but Homan understands like you can actually do a little bit more with less. I think now the big thing, because, you know, there's been some pushback on ICE. Now, still, the Signal poll shows the majority of Americans want ICE. The majority of Americans want to deport every illegal. That was true a year ago. It's still true today. Now, some of them want to do it, and you know, with puppies and rainbows because people are stupid and they think you can deport illegals by just giving them hugs. Which, again, some people are morons, but they do want them deported. So yeah, I don't think it's a cave. I think it's more of, okay, you're letting us pick them from the jails. We don't need as many. And we don't need as many because they're calling us whenever they're releasing them from jail. Instead of having to find them in a community where you need like 16 people, it takes 1 or 2 people to go pick them up. So it would be a misallocation of resources. But as far as, you know, backing down, Trump knows you can't back down. He knows that. You can't back down. And if he wants to, and he also knows that there's, you know, they're trying to have some sort of negotiation on DHS funding, which I don't really know if it's going to get anywhere. And even if it doesn't matter. ICE is funded till 2029. So I don't think he's that worried about it. But he's probably doing this partly because of optics, but he's not actually putting ICE in a situation where they don't have the resources to protect themselves, because Trump would never do that.
So, you know, you're right. There is some important perspective. Tom Homan said he's doing this because he's getting more cooperation, which it seems they are. He announced yesterday that he had called the police chief in Minneapolis That was because random agitators were trying to set up roadblocks. And Tom Homan's like, what are you doing? You're just hurting your own people. We're obviously not going to stop the job we're doing. But he said the police chief took care of it pretty immediately, which is a big change. And he also said that they're still going to enforce the law. They're still going to go after illegal immigrants. None of that is stopped. So we have that aspect. And I tend to agree with you on Kristi Noem. She was great on the border initially, but when it came to the response of what's going on in Minnesota, not so great. I mean, not so great. Kind of made things worse. But I do want to play this cut real quick of Trump because he was talking about it during his interview yesterday. Walker, can you go ahead and play the Trump cut for me, if you have it?
Mr. President, speaking of Minneapolis, what did you learn?
I learned that maybe we can use a little bit of a softer touch, but you still have to be tough. These are criminals. We're dealing with really hard criminals. But look, I've called the people. I've called the governor. I've called the mayor, spoke to him, had great conversations with him.
So what do you think, Chris, about his comments there? Said, maybe we need a little bit of a softer touch. So it does seem like some of what's happened has had an effect on him.
Yeah, I mean, again, you're president. You got to understand where the optics are. You had to, what I think is purely justified self-defense killings there. So I get it. You have to deal with the fact that a lot of low information voters who don't really follow this may be easily deceived by stupid stuff. So you have to sometimes respond to that. But I mean, look. I think we're gonna see where this is going. We've already deported. It's only been about a year. We've deported 3.1 million people. Most of those were self-deports, but they're out of the country. So a deportation is a deportation. So if Trump wants to do, allocate resources somewhere else, I don't have a problem. But I think you got to be real careful with this stuff because it's a fine line. If you back down too much, it's going to embolden these people. But if you go overboard and you don't have any sort of control of the chain of command, you're setting yourself up for failure too. So it's a delicate dance. I think Trump knows what he's doing. I trust Tom Homan. But anytime you have these violent rioters and stuff, you gotta put it down immediately. You have to show extreme strength because remember, the communist only understands two things: pain and fear. And if they don't fear getting arrested and the pain of getting incarcerated, they're never going to stop what they're doing. That's the only thing that will ever stop a communist is fear and pain. They do not respond to morality because they have no morality.
Speaking with Christopher Reed, he is host of The Daily Controversy. You're also a retired lawyer, so I'm glad you brought up the fact you believe that both cases, so Alex Preddy, Renee Good, that both cases pretty much justified use of force against them. Now, Renee Good, pretty obvious to me that was justified. Looking at the Alex Preddy situation, a little bit murkier. I mean, we have more video out of Alex Preddy doing violence against ICE in the past, so that does add some important context. But from a legal aspect, why do you think it was a justified use of force against Alex Preddy?
I can tell you the legal standard is going to be reasonable from it has to be objectively reasonable from the officer's perspective, right? So that's actually a very high standard to meet. That's a Supreme Court standard. So it's not a reasonable once, you have video from 50 angles, a couple of weeks later. No. The only thing that matters when you're determining whether or not it was a justified shooting is, was it reasonable? Was he in reasonable fear for serious harm or death? Well, I mean, obviously there were whistles blowing everywhere, screaming. It's being alleged that the guy was resisting, and also this wasn't his first time. Like you said, January 13th, he attacked. He committed a felony by breaking property, and then it's being alleged, and I think this is likely going to be proven true, that his gun did hit the ground. But what happened is those guns are well known for having accidental discharge. So what likely happened is someone yelled gun, and then a shot went off from that gun because it hit the ground very quickly. And if that's the case, think about it. You got a half second, someone yells gun, shots are being fired. You have half a second to stop. You know that the shots were not being fired from the ICE agents. The only one it could be from the guy that's acting like a violent nut job. Likely they knew who this guy was from the January 13th incidents because ICE has really good intel on the most violent people, and I guarantee he would have been on their radar. So no, that's perfectly justified. It may have been, but when you have a half second, you don't know whether it's an accidental discharge or whether he just shot at your face. You have to put down the threat immediately. So no, I don't think there'll ever be any federal court that's going to convict the guy. And even if there were one, it would get overturned on appeal because the standard is so high set by the Supreme Court that there is no way he didn't meet the standard. There's not any way that standard is going to be broken. And I hate people that look at this stuff from like many days later from all these angles. You realize like the cop doesn't have the benefit of force. Like he can't go in the future and look at all these different things. So even if the guy technically was not a threat or technically didn't fire a gun, given the circumstances, he had a reasonable fear for his safety, and what he did was a reasonable response for his fear of safety and the fear of safety of those around him. So I am 100% sure that there is not a federal court that would say that this guy was not working within the law.
Christopher Reed, host of the Daily Controversy, you had mentioned there that they're going to be a fight over the government shutdown. They passed a bill to end the government shutdown, but in 2 weeks, I guess there could be a Department of Homeland Security shutdown, and that's the latest battle. And he said Trump might compromise on that a little bit to get that passed. You did mention that ICE is fully funded because that was passed in a previous bill. But, Democrats are demanding ICE not wear masks, that they have, I guess, name tags on them. And also they can only use judicial warrants instead of administrative warrants.
That would be the end of that would end illegal immigration enforcement, like we said, because judicial warrants you have to get from a federal court. Meaning, even if an illegal immigrant committed a murder, which is a state crime, you couldn't get a judicial warrant from a federal judge because that's not a federal crime. So basically the only way you'd be able to deport any illegal is if he committed a federal crime, like drug trafficking or murdering an ICE agent. That would be the end of deportations. That would be the effective amnesty de facto. So that will never happen. Trump would never agree to it. He's not an idiot, and no Republican's going to go for that. So that one's off the table already. I think the body cams is what they're going to compromise on. I don't think they're going to agree on they can't agree on the face mask. The only way they do that if they made doxing an agent to be like a 10-year mandatory minimum sentence, which the Democrats won't agree to. So he can give body cams. He may even could give like a numbering, like you could have not a name, but you could have an ICE number that is not known, that can't be publicly traced. It can only be traced to the ICE knows it, but nobody else does. Something like that. But other than body cams and maybe a few things here or there, he can't agree to any of that. He just can't. He knows it. Democrats also know that. So I don't know what's going to happen, but I do know Trump's not taking a bad deal because he doesn't have to. And what's going to happen, it's not going to hurt ICE. It's going to hurt FEMA. It's going to hurt agencies that people really actually need. So the Democrats are putting themselves in a bad situation because the ICE is not going to be hurt one bit, but the agencies that people really need, especially when it comes to like different weather events like we've been having, it would put so many Americans in a bad situation if they don't get this passed.
Christopher Reed, you can check out his stuff on his website, thedailycontroversy.com, his podcast, anywhere podcasts are available. Joins me every Thursday on the show. We have much more to talk about on the show today with Chris. There's some craziness going on in New York City. Guess we shouldn't be too surprised because, the mayor is now a communist. So I don't know what we expected, but we'll talk more about that next, of course. Back in a moment on the Yaffee program.
You're listening to Yaffee on WVNN.
We're back here on the Yaffee program. News Talk 770 AM 92.5 FM WVNN. Glad you're here today. If you have any comments, weigh in. We have our text line, the Yaffee text line, 866-494-9866. 866-494-WVNN. That's brought to you by RegenesisStemCell.com. Of course, we do have the free speech phone line as well. Same number. It's the Coleman Furniture Market free speech phone line. Christopher Reed's on the show today. Always have a great conversation with him. Chris, got to ask you real quick. So, Mom Donnie, apparently the commies don't care about the homeless in New York City as much as we thought? Or what is this? Homeless people freezing to death in New York City?
Yeah, it was the policy when it gets cold to just like first of all, 99% of the homeless people in New York City, most places, have severe mental health. Most of it's related to drug abuse. So these people most of them can't make rational decisions. I mean, the state has to come in and make it. But what Mandami did is, if they tell you that they just want to stay there, even if it's sub-freezing temperatures, just let them be there, knowing that they'll die. So 16 of them died. 3 apparently died of a drug overdose, so we'll take that out. 13 died of hypothermia, which is, just so people know, it's one of the worst ways to die. It's incredibly painful. It is not a peaceful way to go. And Eric Adams said right before Mandami took office, he's like, this is one policy I want you to really reconsider, because basically if you do this, people will die. People will die in horrible ways. And Mandami said, no, because it's more of a virtue signal, because I don't want the police to force these homeless people to, I guess, not freeze to death. But look, the communist he's a communist, like you said. He doesn't care if these homeless people die. Like, he doesn't care if anyone dies. All that matters to him is his power. And it wasn't just that. He didn't clean up the snow. It looks awful. Trash is piling up. He can't do the basic things of mayor. But it's like, people want to get mad at Mandami. I'm not even mad at him. I'm mad at every person that voted for him. I hope every one person that voted for him has a horrible 4 years. I hope everything goes absolutely miserable for them. So maybe there's some consequence, so that next time they don't vote for a communist. That's the only thing that I can hope for, because he's not going to be able to do anything. He's an idiot. So it's only going to get worse from here, is what I'm saying.
It's interesting you bring up, how he's failing as mayor. Do you take that? Is it because he is a radical communist and that he's just inevitably going to fail? Or is it that he has no experience and doesn't really know he's never had a real job in the past? He's never had to really run anything in the past. So he has no experience on how to manage something like, the biggest city in the country. Is that part of it? And that should have been an issue, right? So it kind of goes back to what you said. The voters should have known better.
Yeah, I mean, even if you don't have that much experience, I mean, you kind of can just, as long as you don't make really dumb decisions, the city's been running itself for a very long time, right? Like, there's already procedures in place. But what he did is he put a bunch of dumb procedures that have never been tried, and they don't work, and he can't learn from it. But yeah, I mean, did it help that he had no experience? No, but I mean, de Blasio had a lot more experience in government. He was almost as bad. So I don't really think it's that he lacks experience. I just think his goal is to, basically pay off his friends and punish his enemies. And as far as like garbage pickup and cleaning ice up, or whether, homeless people die, well, that's not why he wanted to be mayor. None of that stuff matters to him. So he sees this as a distraction from his true goals, and people don't understand that, because a lot of people are decent people. For him, all this other stuff is irrelevant. Like, plus he'll blame it on whoever he needs to blame it on. So no, I don't think the experience matters. Look at Joe Biden. Joe Biden had more experience than any president in American history. Probably he was one of the worst presidents we had in life. It's not experience as much as it is ideology.
Well, and judgment. I heard someone say that once.
Yeah.
Always made sense. You don't necessarily have to have a lot of experience to have good judgment, but there's nothing. I mean, experience can help, no doubt about it. But you're right. There's nothing to suggest even he would have good judgment. It's just weird, though, and it really just exposes the nonsense of his ideology, because in one sense, they say, well, they want to care about the poor. We need to redistribute wealth to care about the poor because capitalism is bad. And then you have an actual way to care about the poor and the homeless in your city, and you do the direct opposite that's good for them. So it really does show kind of the hole in their thinking. About 30 seconds for you, Chris.
Yeah. There's just no way he's going to learn from this. He's not going to get any pushback from media. So this story will go by, but you get enough of this stuff, it will stick in the media. It will stick in the public. But I think after 4 years, he's not getting reelected. If he's lucky, if he's hitting 20% approval rating.
All right. When we get back in the next hour, I want to talk about the SAVE Act that is supposed to be voted on in the Senate, getting support from Alabama lawmakers. We'll talk about that with Christopher Reed next.
The Yaffee Program.
Dan Bongino returns.
It's real. You better produce something fast.
And he's not holding back.
Dan, that's backwards. No, I'm telling you the truth.
Hard truths and a bold perspective no one else can offer.
You may not hear this anywhere else. I'm always under the assumption that you're being played, we're being played. Man, this show continues to expand its footprint, and I love you guys for it.
It's the comeback everyone's been waiting for.
If there was ever a time, it is this one.
The Dan Bongino Show. Follow and listen on your favorite platform.
The Yaffee Program on WVNN.
Welcome to the second hour of the Yaffee Program, right here on News Talk 770 AM, 92.5 FM, WVNN. Glad you've joined the show today. If you miss any of the show live, well, the podcast's up on the website, WVNN.com. You can also find it on the WVNN app, the iHeartRadio app, or anywhere you get your podcasts. So the Democrats have put out a list of demands when it comes to funding for Department of Homeland Security, which they passed a 2-week continuing resolution to keep funding going. But what's interesting, and Senator Katie Britt pointed this out, in the official list of demands, they basically ask that ICE cannot interfere at polling places. So they put out a list. I mean, in the actual agreement, they put out a list of demands, and they said, protect sensitive locations. I'm reading this verbatim, by the way, from their list. Protect sensitive locations, prohibit funds from being used to conduct enforcement near sensitive locations, including medical facilities, schools, childcare facilities, churches, polling places, and courts also. So Katie Britt, U.S. Senator from Alabama, asks, why would you not want ICE at polling places? Why would you want illegal immigrants to have sanctuary at polling places? They say illegal immigrants aren't voting, but they sure want to protect their ability to do so. So to talk about this right now is Christopher Reed. He's host of The Daily Controversy. Check out all his stuff at thedailycontroversy.com. Chris, what's your reaction to this?
Yeah, I mean, it's just like the SAVE Act because, I mean, all it says is voter ID. 83% of Americans want it, 76% of African Americans, 81% of Hispanics, 85% of white people. So it's just, you know, of course they don't want it to polling places. We already know that a significant amount of illegals vote elections. We've discovered this. That's why they did the situation we're going to see in Georgia, Pennsylvania. There's all kinds of issues with that. I mean, why else would the Democrats fight way harder for illegal immigrants than they do for, say, working class like union members? That used to be a big part of the coalition. They never talk about them. They don't really talk about the environmentalist stuff either. That was a huge part of their coalition. The future of the Democratic Party is foreigners, and they're becoming incredibly unpopular on 7 of the 10 biggest issues to Americans. Republicans have a significant lead in 5 of those 10. It's 70% to 30% at least. So, I mean, look, of course they don't want them near polling places. It's the same reason they don't want voter ID, because their party is so unpopular. And they say these crazy things, not because they can win elections, but because they can win elections when they allow for, let's just say, people to vote that really shouldn't be voting. And of course, we're not going to agree to any of that. Why would we agree to it? I will say this, though. ICE does not take people from churches. They don't do that. They generally don't take people from hospitals unless it's somebody that's been arrested and they got like handcuffs to their bed, right? Something like that they do. But I mean, courthouses, they have to go to courthouses. That's where they get a lot of them, and that makes sense. It's a place, you know, they're not armed because they have to go through security, so that's a smart place. So no, the Democrats are just making demands because the Democrat Party is based on 3 planks: foreigners, fraud, and cheating. Like that's it. Without foreigners, without fraud, like the Minnesota stuff, and without cheating, the Democratic Party would never be a national party. It would be the end of the Democratic Party as it exists in as far as presidential elections.
So you had mentioned it there. This issue has come up because Republicans are pushing to save the SAVE Act, or to pass the SAVE Act. And I know Trump now calls it the Save America Act. Part of that is voter ID. Before we get into more on the latest fight there, do you want them to pass the SAVE Act?
I mean, I don't know any Republican that would be against it. It's only going to help our party, and it's fair to everyone. Like, look, you have to show an ID if you want to buy a beer or you want to get a smoke, or if you want to be on public assistance. And I guarantee you, the Democrat base, a lot of them have public assistance. They got IDs. All of them have IDs. The idea they don't have, the only people that don't have government issue IDs are illegal immigrants, and that's it. Like we're not saying you can't vote if you're like a dirty communist. I mean, I wish you wouldn't, but you can because it's America. If you're an American citizen, right? So you can still vote even if you are completely have no idea about politics or who the president is. I don't know if that's the best system, but at least we should say, let's just make sure people that are legally here and have citizenship can vote. It is the lowest bar I could ever imagine in a country setting. Every single country in Europe has it. Mexico has it. Virtually every country on earth has it. And we're one of the few countries that don't.
Well, there are some Republicans. It's the typical Republicans. It's the Rand Pauls. It's the Thomas Masseys. But they're worried that this kind of nationalizes elections. Like their whole argument is the states' rights argument, that really this is something that should be handled by the states. So they're not against voter ID, at least according to Rand Paul. They just don't think it's something that should pass. They basically are arguing it's unconstitutional. Any thoughts on that?
Well, he's wrong. The federal government has the right to regulate federal elections. Now, the states would still administer this. The only thing the federal government would be doing would be making sure that a state ID is required for voting, and no one could register to vote without a birth certificate or a passport or something that shows they're a legal citizen, which would be so easy to get. You have to have these documents. And also, even if you didn't have it, they can just look up your social security number in a computer. And so, it's so easy to do. The states would still be administering it. It wouldn't be an issue of the states. It would just mean that you'd have some federal oversight, and it would be a law, so no president could get around it. So it's not. There are already federal regulations at every election that are going on right now. There's been federal regulations for these elections since the beginning of the republic. So what Rand Paul is saying is idiotic. Libertarians, they live in a fantasy world of make-believe, rainbows and unicorns, and they don't live in the real world. And I get so sick of these people. And they say no to everything. And I was like, what's the point in getting elected if you're just never you don't care about governing? You just want to show everyone virtue signal from the libertarian side that you're never going to do anything. Well, great. You can do that without being a member of Congress. And I wish they would.
Yeah, I know that Trump really wants to primary Thomas Massie, even kind of bashed him during his speech today at the prayer breakfast because of this kind of stuff. It's because they always find a reason. I mean, Thomas Massie did come out this week and said, he still votes about 91% with Republicans, just disagrees with them and Trump on some things. But I know you're not a big fan of his.
Yeah, that's a misleading thing, too, because, 91% on bills that don't matter. Like, most of those bills he's talking about don't matter. A couple of them do. But if you're talking about, major things that are really key to the Republican agenda, he's not even batting 30%, okay? That's just not true. He didn't vote for the tax cuts. He didn't vote for ICE to get the money they needed. He didn't vote for the school choice money. I mean, to me, it just seems like he can say, well, I voted for 90. Yeah, I guess if you're counting when the Republicans wanted to name a post office, you voted with them. That's great. But it's just those stats are so misleading. And if you actually look at the big things he voted against, those are the things that matter to Republicans. The stuff he voted with Republicans on are more like ceremonial stuff that makes absolutely no difference.
Now back to the SAVE Act. I wanted to play a cut here from J.D. Vance. Now J.D. Vance was at the opening ceremonies for the Winter Olympics, and he was talking about this in an interview and why Democrats, are kind of hypocritical on this issue. So Walker, if you can you play the J.D. Vance cut I sent you?
Well, we're working very hard right now to get the Senate to approve it, because if the Senate approves it, we think the House would approve it too. Now, that would require, I think, some Republican senators who maybe they're a little too attached to the filibuster, maybe they're a little too attached to Senate procedure. This is about the integrity of American democracy. Do the people control who they elect, or do some shady people It's who actually controls the people who cast the ballots or the people who count the ballots? We want the sovereignty to be with the people who cast the ballots, and that's why we have to get the SAVE Act passed. Now, you'll hear people say all the time, and I love this argument. They'll say, well, if you look at this precinct, only 3 illegal aliens voted in this election. Number one, that's 3 illegal aliens too many. And number two, if it's not a big problem, then why not just allow us to check ID and exercise some basic precautions to prevent illegal aliens from voting? I never quite understand the person who says, on the one hand, this never happens, and on the other hand, your effort to prevent it from happening is a threat to American democracy, which is fundamentally the Democrats' argument.
So, I mean, he kind of points out the hypocrisy there. It just doesn't make any sense. If it's not happening, why do they care so much about voter ID? What do you think, Chris?
Well, I mean, any person with a brain knows that. It's obvious. Why? Also, it's 71% of Democrats are supportive of this. Usually, if Democrats have 2/3 of their party support something, even if it's like a bipartisan thing, they're for it for the most part. But this is like one of those issues. They know if they require voter ID and really tight elections where you're talking about 1-2% makes a difference, they're going to lose those. And if you look at the Senate elections where we lost 4 seats, those are all within that margin of error. And if you assume that, let's just say it's 1-2% of their votes are cheating, and that's fine. You could say maybe it's more, maybe it's less. But even if it's that small a number, if that's true, we would have 57 Republican senators right now, and we'd have 226 congressional seats. And I guarantee you, they know to a T how many of their votes are likely not by American citizens. And look, I understand they want to keep power. They care about power. They don't want to lose votes. That's fine. I get it. But I just wish we would break the filibuster, which is going to get broken anyway. Anyone holding it up is living in a fantasy world. So, yeah, I mean, these people are cheating. There's no doubt. If they weren't cheating, they would just pass it to prove their point that they're not cheating. But since they're not going to pass it, they're obviously cheating. So that's fine. But let's just be honest. The Republicans that won't do what's necessary for this they don't care about the future of the American Republic.
Christopher Reed is host of The Daily Controversy. Check out his stuff at thedailycontroversy.com. His podcast, anywhere podcasts are available. When we get back, we have a lot more to get to on the show today. I'm curious, Chris's thoughts when it comes to the whole Savannah Guthrie, Nancy Guthrie situation. We have the Washington Post that is in chaos, apparently. So we'll talk about that and more. Stay with us on the Yaffee program. We'll be back in just a sec.
It's the Yaffee program on WVNN.
So I know the Washington Post had that slogan, democracy dies in darkness. It looks like maybe the Washington Post is going to die in darkness. And by darkness, I mean they can't afford to keep the lights on. They're losing money. They can't afford their bills, I think. We got to talk about this more right now on the Yaffee program. Christopher Reed is on the show. The latest news is that the Washington Post has laid off 33% of its staff. Now, of course, you have those on the left in the propaganda press blaming Bezos or whatever. He's just a greedy billionaire or something. But no, the real problem is they're just not making any money. But what do you think about all this, Chris?
Well, it's funny because a lot of people got laid off for these weird, super DEI staff that would only write about LGBTQ issues in the healthcare industry. And Matt Walsh did make a funny post about it, but he's not that far off. I mean, those are the... or BIPOC, and it's just the news is the news. If the news involves LGBT, a normal journalist could cover that. If there's some sort of DEI-ish thing in the news, you can cover it however you want. You don't need a specific branch for that. And they got rid, I think, of a lot of their sports. Nobody goes to the Washington Post for sports, and one of the reasons, I know this is kind of a point, but people in Washington D.C., nobody's actually from there, so they do have sports teams. And people go to the games and stuff because it's kind of fun to be, but they don't have avid fans because, again, 90% of the people that live in DC are transplants where they already have teams they like more than whoever's playing in DC. And so, yeah, they do have teams, but people aren't going to the Washington Post for sports analysis, and it was costing a ridiculous amount of money. I'll just say this: the WAPO sports people were hated by the major sports industry because they would try to make things way too political. And so, they laid him off because they weren't making money. And Bezos, he didn't become a massive billionaire by throwing money away. And for him, it's like, yeah, even though this isn't a big investment, I'm not going to have an investment that's not paying me returns. And it's a matter of principle, and I respect it. That man's a true capitalist. Good for him. And I think that, look, if these guys didn't make money, you're done. That just is what it is. That's true for every business.
And on the sports thing, I think it's even beyond that. It was different. You would want to go to the sports section if you had a physical newspaper. If you're in D.C., you're reading a physical newspaper, you're going to turn to the sports section and look at maybe Washington, D.C. sports, like you said. But I feel like most people that are reading the Washington Post these days, they're doing it online, obviously, and they're really reading it for the national news. I mean, are they really getting a lot of the local people in D.C. wanting to read the Washington Post to see D.C. news? I feel like, especially with sports, they're going to get that other places anyway.
I mean, New York Times, they don't have a great sports page, right? But they probably have a little bit of a better that sports analysis, I would say. And plus, it's way bigger than DC. So, and a lot of people do grow up in New York City. A ton of people actually do. So it works kind of okay there. But you're right. People don't go to the WAPO because of their interesting analysis on who the Nationals traded and what the team's going to. It's just nobody cares. It's just, and often one of the reasons AL.com is I would say succeeds because it's a terrible place, but it does get some return because they actually do have really good sports analysis. That's probably the best thing they do, and people often go to them for that.
And they promote it a lot, which tells you.
Yeah. So their news is terrible. No one likes it, but their sports is really good, so they're able to make a profit. So it's kind of the opposite for the WAPO. People are going for, their sort of left-wing passion news stuff. They're just, and a lot of people, people don't like this, but people that are super left-wing into politics, they're generally not sports fans. I know, I hate to tell people that, but they're generally not big sports fans. Maybe they like soccer or something, but if you actually look at fans for the average fans for MLB, NFL, they're going to lean right. They're going to lean heavily male too. So again, Washington Post, that's not their main audience.
Yeah, I would agree with that. So it's interesting to see the shakeup in some of the mainstream media outlets because you have CBS News. They hire Barry Weiss to be the editor-in-chief. They've already had some changes there. Now you have the Washington Post. Bezos has been wanting to moderate a little bit. Are you hopeful at all, I guess, for the future of the mainstream media, or should we just expect the same old, same old? You also have NPR. They're not getting government funds, but they're still out there. Apparently, they were totally fine. They didn't need the government money, a lot of these places. But what do you think?
Yeah, I know it's illegal, but I just want to deport most of the legacy media. And I'm not a mean person. I would probably put them in Canada, or some European country. I don't want to put them in North Korea. I'm a good man. I would never do that. But yeah, I think you might see some slight changes, but it's just if you make major education changes, and let's say you have a really good curriculum, but if 90% of your teachers are worthless, dirty communists, well, you're not going to get that much change. And it's the same with legacy media. CBS is getting some marginally good changes, all right, but because they have the same talent and their talent's all left-wing, you're talking about maybe 10 to 20% at best becoming more neutral, but it's still going to be a left-wing organization. So I think until you change the people that are delivering the news and the people behind the scenes, every change is going to be minimal. I'll take the change, but it's going to be minimal.
Okay, so not very hopeful there. I guess basically your point is something is better than nothing when it comes to this.
Yeah,
look, a little bit of change.
Yeah, if you've told me that CBS went from being 99% left wing to 84%, I'm like, well, that's really good. That's a huge improvement. But it's not 50-50. Let's just be honest.
It's sad that that's good. We're so used to. I called them the propaganda press for a reason. We're just so used to them being left wing that they move 10%. We're like, wow, this is so much different. When it's like, is it really? So
yeah.
We go ahead, Chris.
Yeah, it's all about trend lines. It's the right trend line, so we could be optimistic. I guess that's good. Yeah, there you go.
All right, when we get back, we have much more to get to here on the Yaffee program with Christopher Reed. Stay with us.
You're listening to Yaffee on WVNN.
This isn't your average podcast.
Do you like party?
I do like a huge chug of tequila.
The Howlerhead whiskey bottle chug in front of Dana White. That was the first time we ever went to LA. We somehow got into a Diddy party. What's an Elon Musk house party look like?
My parties generally have a very high production value. This is Full Send.
I do want to do a lot more pranks. Bunch of different pranks.
Join the party.
Jack Doherty in the house.
Feeling good, man. What are we going to talk about with Will Smith?
Yeah, I know what you're going to say.
Shout out to Theo Vaughn.
It's been entertaining, dude.
The Full Send podcast.
Grab the boys, grab the beers, let's do it.
Follow and listen on your favorite platform.
Welcome back to the Yaffee program. We're here on News Talk 770 AM 92.5 FM WVNN. It's Thursday as well. That means Christopher Reed joins the show. You can hear his show right here on WVNN, 8 to 10 p.m. Monday through Friday. And, of course, we're always here for the Yaffee program, 9 to 11 a.m. Monday through Friday. So I wanted to ask Chris's opinion on the latest with Nancy Guthrie, who is NBC Today host Savannah Guthrie's mom. Been getting a lot of attention in the news because apparently she was kidnapped from her home on Saturday. They have no idea what happened to her. They do say it looks like it was some kind of struggle. Now, the latest news is that yesterday, Savannah Guthrie, along with her siblings, put out a video saying that if there is someone who has her, to reach out, that they have heard reports of a ransom in the media, but nothing really confirmed on that. And they wanted proof that Nancy is alive. Now, the other thing I was going to talk about, and I'll get Chris's take as well, and he gave me an update on TMZ. So let me go through some of this. There was one reporter who used to work for CNN and used to work for MSNBC and used to work for News Nation. She has her own podcast called the Drop Dead Series Podcast. She said, her name is Ashley Banfield. She said that Savannah's brother-in-law, so Nancy's son-in-law, might be a prime suspect in the case, citing an unnamed law enforcement source. She reported that investigators are focusing on the husband of Nancy Guthrie's other daughter. She said there is some connection to Annie Guthrie's car and Nancy Guthrie's son-in-law, that would be Annie's husband, from Tucson. Says, and my law enforcement source tells me that he is the prime suspect in the case. Now, she later qualified this by stating that he may be a suspect, adding that family members are often examined closely early in missing person cases. Now, according to some of the latest reports, they heard about this claim, the police chief there, and the Pima County Sheriff Department as well said Wednesday morning, they said, we have not identified a suspect or person of interest in this case. Detectives continue to speak with anyone who may have had contact with Mrs. Guthrie. We are also awaiting additional forensic results. It says, we are not confirming the car being seized. We are unsure where that reporter got her information. Now, another piece of news, I'm trying to get all this out there before I get your comment, Chris, but President Trump talked with Savannah Guthrie yesterday, and he posted on Truth Social that he is sending all kinds of resources to find her. Said he wants to work to find Nancy Guthrie. And I understand as well that FBI Director Kash Patel is going to be on the scene today. So knowing all of this, Chris, you're a retired lawyer. You've seen some of this stuff as well in your profession. What do you think about this? I mean, what do you think the chances are that Nancy's alive? Do you think maybe it was a ransom? I mean, what is going on here?
Well, I'm going to say this first. It may be controversial. I don't know if everyone agrees with me, but I'm against kidnappings in all cases. Yeah, I'm against them all. I want to say that. But look, she's a wonderful lady. I was actually looking into it. She does go to a Presbyterian conservative church. It's kind of like the one in Briarwood I used to go to. Seems like a wonderful person. Really sad, but if you look at the data, the more time that goes between somebody getting kidnapped and not being recovered, the less chance you recover them. And if you add in the factor that she doesn't have dementia, but she's in poor physical health. She's 84. She had a pacemaker. Those chances go down significantly as well. I mean, pray that she comes back. I mean, it does happen. Elizabeth Spark, no one thought she'd come back. She did. There's always been examples. So I'm not saying there's zero. Police need to do everything they can. The federal government should do everything they can. But if you want to just look at this from an objective standpoint, in cases like this, the person returning alive is probably not, it's close to 10%, and that's being really generous. And as far as the family thing, I'll say this, every single time there's somebody's missing in a family, they do a timeline of the family, because you're always looking for family. You always do that. So they would have ruled out the family within the first 24, 48 hours. I mean, they just would. That if there was anything there, they would have had it. So that was denied by the police. TMZ, there's a couple other ones that said that wasn't true. And plus, if it was true, like, think about it. Like, you're married to her daughter. You really think he's going to do that, and then he's going to find a way to hide his movements and everything else? Now you get caught. So I don't think that's it. I think somebody kidnapped her, and most likely it was somebody that thought they could get a lot of money for it. And what may have happened is
you actually think it's a ransom thing? I see. Usually in these cases, it's someone you know. So yeah, I think it's probably a personal thing.
Well, I think I think that it started as a ransom thing, but there were blood droplets found at the scene. Doesn't mean she died, but if it was a ransom thing, ransoms are called in within 24 to 48 hours. There's not a number that we know of. They said there's a note, and we think that it may be there. So I don't know if that's maybe she was taken, maybe she passed away in custody because of the way she was taken. I don't really know, but it just seems like at this point, if there was a ransom and a payment, you would have had an exchange or something like that at this point. So to me, it seems like I don't think she's going to come back. I hope she does. I really hope she does, but it's very unlikely in my mind.
Yeah, unfortunately, most people probably think that. It's interesting. Another report I had heard earlier this week is that they basically had cleared the crime scene within 24 hours. Because they got an Amazon package. Reporters were asking. They said, well, they already turned the home back over to the family. And people were kind of like, why so soon? You've already cleared this up. Wouldn't you still be there? Now, apparently, because the feds have gotten more involved here, it's now a crime scene again. They have crime scene tape, and there are more investigators looking more into it. But that to me was a little concerning. And it almost made me think maybe they do know more than they're letting on, the officers.
Well, they always know more, because in any case like this, you can't. If you give all the details, that's a very dangerous thing, because then you won't be able to determine between real tips and fake ones, right? So you have to hold some things back, because if someone calls in with a tip and they give details that were not made publicly available, it probably means that tip's going to get high priority. But if you tell them everything, you can't distinguish. So 95% of tips are going to be fake and something this high profile. So they have to. So yes, but it does. It's just I don't want to. I hate criticizing law enforcement, but this Tucson sheriff, it doesn't seem like has a lot of experience with this. He's not good at press conferences. Just either answered questions so vaguely it didn't help, or he was way too specific to begin with. And I'm not saying whether he was the best or not would have made a difference in the outcome, but it just doesn't give people a lot of confidence.
Yeah, I'm just not sure. I mean, it's terrifying. It's a horrible story. And unfortunately, I'm sure you had this thought in your mind as well. We're all hoping it's not politically motivated or something. Some nut job who didn't like Savannah Guthrie and takes it out on her mom. I mean, we're all hoping it doesn't kind of raise to that level either.
I would say probably not. I mean, Nancy, again, her mom's really conservative. I don't think Savannah is, but her mom is. So I don't think that would be it. You generally, if it was a political statement, you go after a politician, right? You go after somebody that's an activist. You're not going to go after an 84-year-old lady to make a political statement. That's something that just isn't done historically. It's probably going to be more. I would say it's likely more of something that has to do with money. or maybe some psychotic person wanted to be famous, so they decided to kill the relative of a famous person. We do see that throughout history, but politically, there's not really a political reason you go after someone's elderly mother in this situation. There's no way I could see that making sense, even to somebody that wants to hurt people for political reasons.
Yeah, I tend to think you're right on that. I'm still going to go with, and who knows? I really hope she's still alive. I hope maybe they can get her back. I hope we find out more information soon. But if I had to guess, I'm going to guess it's someone she personally knew, and it has to do with some kind of personal dispute or something that nobody is aware of, and that we kind of find out. If it's not a family member, it's someone at her church, it's a friend, and it has nothing to do with money or the fame. That's my guess. We don't know for sure, but that's kind of where I think this is going to end up going, because usually that's what happens. So Christopher Reed is joining us. When we get back from the break, he's going to go over a story maybe we missed. There's a lot to cover, and I'm sure we missed something. So we'll get to that next on the Yaffee program. Stay with us.
The Yaffee program.
We're back here on the Yaffee program, News Talk 770 AM, 92.5 FM WVNN. If you missed any of the show live, just a reminder, the podcast is up on the website, WVNN.com, or anywhere you get your podcasts, or I guess you can ask Alexa, Siri, whoever. They'll play it as well. You can also find the Daily Controversy podcast hosted by Christopher Reed. His show is on WVNN. You can find that as well. So WVNN.com info there, and his show's 8 to 10 p.m. right here on the station. Chris, any stories maybe we missed today?
Yeah, this is a little bit lighthearted, but it's interesting. This is from Fox. Stephanie Panon. Comedian defiant as Minnesota venue cancels 6 sold-out shows after he mocked Renee Good. And this comedian is actually really funny. I watched this bit. It was good.
Okay.
Minnesota Comedy Club abruptly canceled 6 sold-out shows by comedian Ben Baucus after a viral clip of his stand-up routine in which he mocked a woman who was shot and killed by immigration officers, Renee Good. Laugh Camp Comedy Club in St. Paul pulled the plug on Baucus' scheduled January 30th to February 1st performance over the jokes he made about 37-year-old Minneapolis mother, Renee Good. Baucus replied bluntly to the cancellation. He told audience, "I just found out my shows are canceled." He said, "I'll just say screw them." He added, appears to refer to the venue, and he's basically going to get different ones. But this is we don't really talk about this as much because cancellation's kind of not as big a deal as it was, say, under Biden. But it really is. What is interesting is that late night comedians and like Trevor Noah said, "Oh, Trump went to Epstein Island," all this stuff, which isn't true. Trump had no relationship with Epstein after like 2002 because he made some inappropriate comment about Ivanka, and he thought he was a dirtball. But this guy's not doing anything different than what Dave Chappelle did. When they've made fun of white people, he made fun of trans people. It was all like, I mean, it was offensive, but it was funny. And this guy, what he said about Renee Good was somewhat offensive, but it was really funny. He made some really good points, and he wasn't just telling jokes. He was kind of making fun of how narratives are created within the media. Like you hear about that she's this mom taking her kid to daycare, and you found out, oh, she's getting paid $70,000, $100,000 to do this, and she harassed ICE that entire morning, and she left the country because she's got severe TDS, and she didn't have custody of 2 of her kids, and what's that about? And it's just like, you know what? Everything he actually said, I mean, some of the joke stuff was offensive, but he really was reporting on real facts that a lot of people don't know. Like this person was a devout communist. She did lose custody of her 2 kids, or at least she didn't have custody. I don't know. We don't know all the details there. And it was her female lover that told her to drive, baby, drive, which put her in a situation. And he comment on the fact that the lesbian lover also didn't realize that federal agents have real bullets. She's like, "Why did you use real bullets?" I'm like, "What kind of bullets do you think we use? Like we're going after like
it's not a game.
It's not a game." Yeah, these people are. So his comedy is actually really important. Just like Dave Chappelle's comedy was really important in the trans debate, because he was one of the first guys that was a mainstream media to kind of say this is ridiculous. And they tried to cancel him on Netflix, and they didn't work because he had such great support just amongst the public, especially the black community, because they were going crazy. They're like, "You're not canceling our guy. It's never going to happen." And Netflix had to back down, and they did. But this is key. Like, we need comedians to do this, especially if what they're doing is the truth. And by the way, if you watch comedy late night, it's all lies about Trump and all. It's nothing but ridiculous lies and slander about him. And you know what? They can do that. It's a free country. But at the same time, this guy should be able to tell jokes that are funny. And also, he's using true facts to tell jokes, just like Dave Chappelle was using true facts to really explain the trans situation. And he was a big part that you got a lot of people that were more Democrat, lean, independent to say, yeah, this is ridiculous. Because once you mock something, once you laugh at something, it's really hard for the people that are creating the narrative that it's so wonderful to keep the narrative. And that's why more than anything, they don't want a narrative that comes out that mocks their so-called martyrs. And so this is a big issue. He's going to get rebooked. And in America, because they canceled him, he's just going to get more popular. This is one of the best things that probably happened to him. And again, by doing this, they're only making his voice more powerful. Now, in England, it wouldn't be. They would have just locked him in jail. But in America, at least now, it's going to make him have a bigger platform. But what are your thoughts?
Well, first off, so it's the outlet that's doing it, right? Where he was supposed to have it that's canceling it. Who's actually?
6 of them. Yeah, 6 outlets in Minnesota.
Oh, 6 of them.
Yeah, they all canceled because he told a joke they didn't like. But like these same outlets have hosted people that have said most disgusting, vulgar, horrible things. And
I mean,
they didn't cancel them.
Did they mention? Is that why they canceled it? Because of his comments?
Yeah.
Like sometimes they'll say it's a safety thing or something.
No,
like
they said it was because of the comments. They were very open. Yeah.
I mean, my main question in response to that is Jimmy Kimmel going to cry? Because you might remember, he said something pretty nasty, and ABC thought about getting rid of him, the affiliate, and we were all told it's an attack on free speech. He's crying on the air. Stephen Colbert is defending him, and then he's brought back. We're like, this is great for free speech. So I'm guessing that to be consistent, right? Jimmy Kimmel's going to come out and he's going to cry and he's going to say it's an attack on free speech. Comedy is important and the press is important or whatever. Is that going to happen, you think, Chris?
Yeah, it's not going to happen. I mean, but even in Alabama, we had Michael Rappaport. He's a funny comedian. He used to be super left-wing. Now he's a lot he realized the Democrat Party became highly anti-Israel, anti-Semitic, and he's very pro-Israel. He's a Jewish guy. And he got canceled at like a Birmingham comedy club, which is insane because this is Alabama. And people were very angry about it. But, comedians generally, like, I get that sometimes what they do is they say, like, oh, well, because I'm a comedian, I can just tell defamation and lies. Well, you can't do that. But you can tell edgy jokes. You can mock. You can be sarcastic. You can have opinions that are vile and disgusting. But, a country, like, if you look at historically what happens whenever they start going after the comedians and the clergy and the journalists and that kind of stuff, that's when you live in a tyrannical rule. Because under Stalin's rule, like the people that were telling like jokes at like Moscow clubs, he just got rid of those guys. Those guys were disappeared into gulags or murdered like almost immediately, because he wasn't going to be mocked by anybody, and they got the message. I mean, and that's kind of how it was under Obama. You didn't hear any comedians saying anything about him.
I know.
Yeah, but they didn't kill him, but I'm just saying, like, so we need, like, we're actually getting a lot more great comedy, great entertainment from the right, and I think that's really messing with the left because they controlled that forever. But because they went so ridiculously woke, now there's a huge opening. And so you get all these comedians that are more on our side. Like Greg Gutfeld, he has way better ratings than every single person that's on network news.
Well, and unfortunately, Stephen Colbert is an example, or Jimmy Kimmel. They're going after what's called the clapter instead of the laughter, because it's like they want a virtue signal. And they don't really want, because, they're afraid to say anything because of the woke stuff. So they'll say things that virtue signal, and you get kind of this applause out of it. Like, oh, look how great he is. And it's like even comedians on the left want to get that more than actually laughs, actually say jokes. But of course, when they do say jokes, it's against people on the right. I mean, Stephen Colbert last week said ICE is worse. He basically said ICE are worse than Nazis. The ICE agents are worse than Nazis. If he can say that on national television and still have a job, even though I guess the show is going away, I mean, a comedian should be able to say some jokes and not have his venue shut it down everywhere in Minneapolis. I guess he's just not going to be able to do it in Minneapolis. He's going to have to go somewhere else. I'm sure there are places around the country he could go.
With the comedians, though, there should be one standard that's universal. It should be funny. Like, if you're going to make fun of
Right,
Trump or make fun of, like, ICE, if it's not funny, then no. Like, you're right. It's the clapter. It's not, no one's laughing. They're just clapping. I'm like, if you want to give lectures, go to a left-wing private elite university, okay? The problem I have is, like, this guy that got canceled was hilarious. Like, his bit was great. His other bits are great, you know? But they also, like, SNL, they got rid of Shane Gillis. He's one of the best comedians of our time because they said, no, he wasn't woke enough. We had to get rid of him. And now he's very wildly successful. And he's not even close to being right-wing. He's definitely not left-wing either. But to me, it just seems like they wanted to enforce this uniformity amongst comedy. And it opened up a huge lane for comedians that aren't, like, super woke. But yeah, you're right. Colbert can call ICE, like, first of all, it's a lie. He's an idiot. But that's the reason he's going away. It's not because he called ICE Nazis. It's because he's not funny. He used to be funny. Even years ago, he's funny. But now, like, he has 10-1 Democrat politicians to people in the entertainment industry. So it's like, he made it a CNN show instead of a comedy show, and people don't want to do that. That's not. They could watch CNN at 10:30 if they wanted to. So I think this shows where we're going in the country. We got to be careful about this stuff.
And Jimmy Kimmel just cries.
Like
a
little girl. Yeah, I hate it.
I'm like, this is comedy? Like, what? I thought it was supposed to be funny. It's just ridiculous. All right, Chris, appreciate you being on the show. He's got his show tonight, 8 to 10 p.m. and his podcast anywhere podcasts are available. If you missed this show, my podcast is up on the website, WVNN.com. I'll be back tomorrow at the same time. See you then.
It's the Yaffee Program on WVNN.
Mic Drop, hosted by former Navy SEAL Mike Ridland.
What does it mean to be an American?
To be American is you love your country above all else.
I love this country. I was born here, raised here. I offered my life to serve this country.
And if you don't do your part to preserve what we have here and our culture, it's going to be gone. And we can't let that happen.
Yeah, that's Mic Drop.
Mic Drop. Follow and listen on your favorite platform.